Rain fell hard over the city ruins. Between broken walls and flickering neon lights, a blind alien girl moved slowly through the narrow alleys. Her name was Lyra. Her thin hands searched through piles of metal and trash. She listened to the soft hum of the night, counting each step carefully. The world around her was full of noise, whispers, footsteps, and laughter that was never kind. Every evening she came to the same trash alley. She carried an old bag made from torn fabric. Her pale blue skin was covered in dust, her white hair tangled by the wind. She looked lost, but she moved with quiet purpose. People on the street called her Trash Girl. Some threw empty cans at her. Others just laughed. But Lyra never shouted back. She only lowered her head and kept searching. She found old cans, broken wires, bits of glass, and sometimes small metal pieces that made a strange humming sound when she touched them. She could not see them, but she could feel something inside them, something alive. When she pressed them close to her heart, she felt warmth. That warmth kept her alive. One night, as the rain grew stronger, she reached for a small glowing sphere hidden under wet paper. It was smooth and cold. The moment she touched it, a faint sound came from it, almost like a heartbeat. She smiled and whispered softly, "You're still warm." At that same moment, a human man named Evan walked past the alley. He wore a dark coat and carried a small flashlight. He worked as a scavenger, collecting scraps to sell. But tonight, his attention stopped on the small figure kneeling in the mud. He saw the alien girl clutching a glowing metal sphere to her chest. Her blind eyes were open but unfocused, her face calm even under the rain. The sight made him stop walking. He watched her for a while. He thought she was crazy. Why was a blind girl searching garbage in the middle of a storm? Why did she smile at a piece of metal like it was food? Then the light from his flashlight touched the object in her hands and he froze. The shape was familiar. He had seen something like it once in a military base years ago. It wasn't garbage. It was ancient alien tech, something people would kill to own. He took a slow step forward. "Hey," he said softly. "What are you doing here?" Lyra turned her head slightly, listening to the voice. She could not see him, but she felt his presence. "I'm finding food," she said quietly. "That's not food," Evan said, pointing at the glowing sphere. She smiled faintly. "It is for me. It keeps me warm. It listens when I talk," he frowned. "You talk to garbage?" She shook her head. "Not garbage. They just don't know it's treasure." Evan felt something strange in his chest, and guilt, pity, maybe curiosity. He walked closer and crouched beside her. She didn't move away. Her hands held the sphere tightly, protecting it from the rain. Up close, he saw scars around her eyes. She was blind, yes, but her face had a strange beauty. Soft features, light marks glowing under her skin like faint silver lines. "Where do you live?" he asked. "Here," she replied. "The alley is my home." "You're alone?" She nodded. Everyone left when the sky burned. Evan looked at the wet ground. He remembered the stories, now how alien villages were destroyed during the war. Humans and aliens both lost everything. But seeing her here, so small and alone, made those stories feel real for the first time. He sighed. "You'll get sick out here," she smiled again. "I already am. But I'm still alive. The trash feeds me." A loud thunder cracked above them. The sphere in her hands suddenly glowed brighter. Evan jumped back. The sound turned into a soft hum, and strange symbols appeared across its surface. Lyra's face changed. She tilted her head, listening closely. "It's speaking," she whispered. Evan looked around, half expecting someone to appear. "What did it say?" "It said my name," she answered. Her voice trembled. "It said, Lyra." Evan's flashlight flickered. For a moment he saw a reflection of light move across the walls, forming strange patterns, almost like faces hidden inside the glow. He swallowed hard. "That's not normal." She hugged the sphere closer. "Nothing is normal anymore." Evan stepped back and looked at her one last time. He didn't know why he couldn't walk away. He had seen beggars and survivors before, but there was something about this girl. Something that didn't belong to this broken city. He took off his jacket and held it out. "Here, take this." "You'll freeze," she hesitated, then reached out slowly. Her fingers brushed against his hand. Her skin was cold, trembling. When she felt the jacket, she smiled gently. "You are kind, human." He didn't answer. He watched her wrap herself in the jacket, still holding the glowing sphere. The rain softened for a moment and the alley grew quiet. Evan turned to leave, but then the sphere made another sound, a whisper, almost like a word. He couldn't understand it, but Lyra's blind eyes widened. "It's waking," she said softly. "It knows you." Evan froze. The light from the sphere shone on his face now, and for a second, he felt warmth spreading through his hand. The sphere pulsed again, slow, steady, alive. He looked at her and asked, "What are you holding?" She smiled faintly. "My only friend." The thunder roared again and the alley filled with white light. Evan stood there, torn between fear and curiosity, as the blind alien girl held the glowing object that spoke her name. He didn't know it yet, but the thing she called trash would change both of their lives, and maybe the fate of the city itself. The storm passed, but the city stayed wet and cold. Dawn broke through the gray clouds, lighting the ruined streets in pale colors. Evan walked back toward the same alley, his thoughts still heavy with the image of the blind alien girl holding that strange glowing sphere. He had tried to forget, but something inside him wouldn't let go. When he reached the alley, she was still there, sitting beside the trash pile, the human jacket wrapped around her small frame. The sphere rested on her lap, still glowing faintly. She turned her head slightly when she heard his footsteps. "You came back," she said. Evan nodded, though she couldn't see it. "You didn't leave this place?" "It is safer here," she said softly. "The others don't come when it rains." He looked around. The ground was covered in mud. Her feet were bare. He noticed how thin she was, her ribs showing under her skin. "You'll die out here," he said quietly. She smiled. "Maybe not today." Something about that answer broke him a little. He took a breath and said, "Come with me. I have a small place." "It's warm." Lyra hesitated. Her hands tightened around the sphere. "Humans don't like my kind," she whispered. "I'm not like the others," he said. "And I don't care what anyone likes." After a long silence, she nodded slowly. Evan helped her stand. Her balance was weak, but she held the sphere close like it was her heart. Together they walked through the silent streets. His shelter was small, just a broken warehouse room with patched walls and a heater made from old ship parts. He guided her inside. She touched the wall and smiled. "It smells of metal and smoke," she said. "It feels alive." Evan found an old blanket and handed it to her. "Sit here. I'll make something to eat." She sat quietly, listening to the soft crackle of the heater. The warmth touched her face. For the first time in years, she felt safe. When he brought her a small bowl of soup, she reached out carefully, trying to find it by sound. He placed it in her hands. "Thank you," she said. He watched her eat slowly. Her movements were calm, graceful even in her weakness. The sphere rested beside her, glowing brighter in the warm light. Evan couldn't stop staring at it. "What is that thing?" he asked finally. She tilted her head. "It's been with me since I lost my eyes. It speaks sometimes. I don't know why." He leaned closer. "You said it said your name," she nodded. "Yes, Lyra. No one else says it anymore." He studied the object. It looked like metal but pulsed like a living heart. Strange patterns moved under its surface. He reached out but stopped halfway. "Can I touch it?" "You can try," she said. When his fingers brushed the sphere, a soft light ran across it. The warmth spread through his hand. Suddenly, a flash of images filled his mind. Mountains, skies full of light, and tall figures wearing silver crowns. He pulled back quickly. "What was that?" he whispered. Lyra looked in his direction. "You saw something?" "Yes," he said. "I think I saw your world." Her face softened. "Then it's showing you what I can't see." Silence filled the room for a moment. The wind howled outside. Evan sat beside her, unsure what to say. He wanted to know more about her past, but her stillness told him it was full of pain. After a while, she spoke again. "Humans burned my home. My mother said to hide. I ran, but fire followed me. When I woke, I couldn't see. The sphere was next to me. I think it saved me." Evan felt guilt crawl through him. His father had fought in that same war. He had believed aliens were enemies, but this girl didn't look like an enemy. She looked like someone the world had forgotten. He looked at her and said quietly, "I'm sorry for what humans did." She turned her face toward his voice. "You're not them," she said. "You gave me food. That's enough." Her calmness unsettled him more than anger would have. He glanced again at the glowing sphere. Its hum was soft now, almost like a song. As the night came, Lyra lay down near the heater. The sphere floated slightly above her hand, spinning slowly. Evan watched, unable to sleep. He whispered to himself, "It's alive." The light from the sphere reflected on his face, gentle and warm. Lyra smiled in her sleep as if she heard something soothing. Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance again, but inside that small, broken shelter, two lives that should never have met were now bound by something unknown, a human burdened by guilt, and a blind alien girl with a treasure that could change everything. And as Evan closed his eyes, he didn't know that the real storm was yet to come. Days passed slowly in the quiet shelter. The rain stopped, but the air stayed cold and heavy. Lyra began to grow stronger. Her body still weak, but her steps were steadier now. Every morning, Evan watched her touch the walls, counting each step as if she was learning the world through sound. She listened to everything: drops of water, the hum of machines, the soft breath of wind through broken windows. Each sound built a picture in her mind. For her, sound was light, and with every sound she learned to move faster. Evan spent his days fixing old parts and studying the glowing sphere. The more he looked at it, the more it confused him. The sphere reacted to Lyra, not to him. It pulsed when she touched it, and sometimes it floated near her hand like it was alive. One morning, while she sat near the heater, Evan cleaned the sphere with a dry cloth. Strange marks appeared under the glow, symbols carved deep into the surface. They looked like language, but one he had never seen before. He leaned closer, tracing them with his finger. "What are these?" he asked. Lyra turned her head toward him. "I don't know. I can't see them, but I feel them. When I sleep, they move in my dreams." Evan frowned. "These aren't random marks. They look royal, like seals or family crests." The word royal made her pause. "My mother used to tell me stories," she said quietly. "She said our ancestors carried light inside them. She said we were the keepers of voices from the stars." He looked at her, curious. "And you think that's true?" "I don't know," she said. "But the light never left me." Evan didn't answer. He only watched her fingers brush the sphere as it glowed brighter with every touch. Later that day, while Evan went out to trade supplies, Lyra sat alone in the shelter. She held the sphere close and whispered softly to it, humming an old song. The sphere began to hum back in perfect rhythm. Then something strange happened. The light inside it expanded and filled the room. Even though Lyra could not see, she felt warmth spread across her face. The walls seemed to vanish. She saw nothing, yet she could sense everything: colors, movement, memories. She gasped. The light inside her mind formed an image of her village, her mother's voice, the sky before the war. Tears fell as she whispered, "Mother, I can hear you." The hum stopped suddenly. The light faded. The room fell silent again. Lyra held the sphere tightly and whispered, "Please don't go." At that same time, Evan returned. But before he could step inside, he heard voices, not Lyra's, but men outside the building. Their whispers were sharp, greedy. "You sure it's here?" one said. "Yes," another replied. The man was seen with an alien girl. "She's got something valuable." Evan's heart raced. He slipped inside quietly. "Lyra," he whispered, "we have to go." She turned toward him, confused. "Why?" "There are people outside. They want the sphere." She stood quickly, clutching it close. "They can't take it." "It's all I have," he nodded. "Then we fight or we run." The door suddenly burst open. Two scavengers entered with metal pipes in their hands. Their eyes went straight to the glowing sphere. "Hand it over," one shouted. Evan moved between them and Lyra. "Back off. It's not for sale." They laughed. "Then you die for trash." One swung his weapon, but Evan blocked it with his arm. The hit knocked him down. Lyra screamed his name. The second scavenger reached for her, but the sphere in her hands exploded with light. The blast threw both men across the room. The walls shook. When the light faded, Evan saw the men lying unconscious on the floor. Lyra stood still, the sphere floating above her hands, spinning faster than before. Evan got up slowly. His arm was bleeding. He looked at her in shock. "What did you do?" She breathed hard. "I didn't do anything. It protected us." The sphere lowered itself back into her palms. Its glow was softer now, like a heartbeat calming down. Evan sat beside her, exhausted. He looked at the sphere again, now understanding it wasn't a machine. It was something far greater. He whispered, "You're connected to it. Maybe it's part of you." She smiled faintly. "Maybe it's the only part of me that's still alive." Outside, the wind carried the faint sound of sirens. More people would come. Evan knew it. But now he also knew one thing. The blind alien girl he had tried to save was not helpless. She carried power older than the city itself. And for the first time, when she turned her blind eyes toward him, he saw a new kind of light within them. Not from sight, but from something far deeper. The light of the blind had begun to shine. The night after the attack was silent but heavy. The two scavengers were gone, driven away by fear and the strange light that had filled the shelter. Evan sat near the heater, wrapping a cloth around his wounded arm. Lyra sat across from him, the glowing sphere resting between them like a living heart. Neither spoke for a long time. The faint hum from the sphere filled the air. It was calm now, as if it had fallen asleep. Evan finally broke the silence. You said it protected us, how? Lyra touched the smooth surface gently. I don't know. It just listens to me. When I'm scared, it reacts. When I'm calm, it rests. He looked at her. Her face was calm, but her hands trembled slightly. It's not a tool, he said. It's something more. I think it's a part of your people's past. Maybe something sacred. She tilted her head. Then why did everyone throw it away? Evan didn't have an answer. He stared at the metal glow. Maybe because they didn't understand what it really was. Like how people see trash instead of treasure. Her lips curved in a small smile. Like me, she said quietly. He looked at her and nodded. No, not like you. You never were trash. The heater flickered and shadows danced across the walls. The silence between them turned warm. Days passed. Evan began searching the city for clues about the strange sphere. He went through markets, repair shops, and old ruins. He found small pieces of ancient tech marked with the same glowing symbols. He brought them back and tried to fit them together, hoping to repair whatever was missing. While he was away, Lyra practiced walking without his help. She listened to her surroundings. The sound of pipes, the wind between cracks, the heartbeat of the sphere. Slowly, she learned to move freely. She didn't bump into walls anymore. She even began to sense when Evan was near before he spoke. One evening, Evan returned carrying a small metal shard covered in the same glowing runes. I found this under an old bridge, he said. It reacts to your sphere. He placed it close and both objects began to hum. The air filled with a soft vibration. Lyra turned her head toward the sound, her expression peaceful. It's singing, she said. Evan watched, amazed. It's trying to rebuild itself, he murmured. It's calling the lost pieces. But as the light grew, he also saw something else. Images forming inside the glow. A tall alien woman with glowing eyes, a crown on her head, holding a small child that looked like Lyra. The vision faded quickly, but it was enough to shake him. He whispered, That woman. She looked like you. Lyra frowned softly. I don't remember her face. But I remember her voice. Evan's mind raced. Then she was real. Maybe your mother was someone important. Maybe this thing belonged to your family. Before Lyra could reply, a sudden knock came from the door. Both froze. Evan motioned for silence and peered through the crack. A shadow moved outside. A voice called, Open up. We know what you have. Lyra clutched the sphere tight. They found us again, she whispered. Evan grabbed a metal rod from the floor. Stay behind me. The door burst open and 3 men entered. They wore scavenger armor, their faces covered. One pointed a weapon at Evan. Hand it over, he said. You don't know what that thing's worth. Lyra stepped forward, her blind eyes glowing faintly. It's not for sale, the men laughed. Then we'll take it from your corpse. Before Evan could move, the sphere lifted itself out of Lyra's hands. The glow turned white, brighter than before. The men screamed as light wrapped around their weapons and turned them to dust. The air vibrated with a deep hum. Evan shielded his eyes. Lyra, stop it. I'm not doing it, she said softly. It's choosing. The light softened again, the men ran away in fear, and the room grew still. The sphere floated gently down and settled in Lyra's hands. Evan looked at her, breathing hard. It's protecting you. It's alive because of you. She smiled weakly. Maybe it knows my heart. Maybe it remembers what I can't. He nodded slowly. And now others will come. Word will spread. They'll think it's a weapon. Lyra turned her blind eyes toward him. Then we must leave. Before they destroy what's left of me. Evan packed his tools, his heart heavy. As they stepped out into the cold night, the sphere glowed like a small sun between them. Lyra walked beside him, guided not by sight but by faith in the sound of his footsteps. The city around them was broken, silent, forgotten. But in that emptiness a blind girl carried a light that once belonged to stars, and a human walked beside her, guarding a treasure he now knew was far greater than gold. The night was cold and the wind carried the sound of distant engines. Evan and Lyra moved quietly through the broken streets, staying close to the shadows. The glowing sphere in her hands gave off a soft light, just enough to see the path ahead. Every few minutes Evan would glance behind them, alert and tense. He knew they were being followed. The story of the blind alien girl with the living relic had spread fast. Traders whispered it in the markets. Bounty hunters began to search the ruins. Some wanted the relic for power, some for money, and some just for revenge. Lyra could sense the danger even without sight. The wind carried new sounds, footsteps, whispers, metal dragging on the ground. "They're close," she said softly. Evan nodded. "We'll take the tunnels. They won't find us down there." They reached a manhole half buried in rubble. Evan lifted it with effort and helped her climb down. The tunnels below were damp and dark, filled with the echo of dripping water. Lyra held the sphere close, and its light painted soft blue lines along the walls. Evan led the way. "Keep your hand on my shoulder," he said. "The ground's uneven." She smiled faintly. "I can hear it breathe." The tunnel feels alive. They walked for hours. Sometimes they stopped when Lyra heard something distant, machines or maybe voices. Every sound carried danger. Yet there was peace too. The deeper they went, the more she felt a strange connection with the sphere. Its heartbeat matched hers. After a while, Evan noticed something glowing on the tunnel wall, the same symbols that were carved on the sphere. "Look at this," he whispered. "We're close to something." Lyra touched the wall gently. Her fingers traced the marks. "It's singing again," she said softly. The symbol shimmered brighter at her touch. A soft vibration spread through the floor. A hidden door slid open silently at the end of the tunnel. Behind it was a vast underground chamber filled with old machines and carvings. The walls glowed faintly with the same light as the sphere. Evan looked around in awe. "This place, it's ancient. It's from your people." Lyra stepped forward slowly. Her bare feet touched the smooth metal floor. The hum of the sphere grew louder until it floated out of her hands and hovered above the ground. Light spread across the walls, revealing tall statues of alien figures, their faces calm and proud. In the center was a mural showing a queen holding a glowing sphere, the same one Lyra carried. Evan stared at it. "That's you," he whispered. She tilted her head. "No, that's her. The one I see in my dreams." As the sphere floated higher, the machines in the chamber began to move. The air filled with low humming. Dust fell from the ceiling. The murals shifted like living pictures. Suddenly, a loud noise echoed from the tunnel behind them. Footsteps heavy and fast. Voices shouted. The hunters had found the entrance. Evan grabbed Lyra's hand. "We have to go." "No," she said, standing still. "It's calling me. It wants to finish what it started." The first hunter entered the chamber, a tall man with a scanner in his hand. "There they are," he shouted. "Get the relic!" Evan pushed Lyra behind a pillar. Shots fired, hitting the metal walls. The sound was deafening. Sparks flew everywhere. Then the sphere released a wave of light that threw everyone backward. The air turned warm and heavy. Lyra stepped out from behind the pillar. Her blind eyes were open, glowing softly. The hunters froze, staring at her in shock. She raised her hand and the walls responded. The statues began to glow. The machine stopped humming and started to move, and not with gears but with energy. Evan looked at her, amazed. "Lyra, what's happening?" Her voice was calm. "It's remembering." The hunters ran for the exit, terrified. The whole chamber shook like a heartbeat. The sphere lowered itself back into her hands. The light dimmed slowly until everything became quiet again. Evan approached her carefully. "You just made the whole place come alive." She turned toward him, her voice soft but sure. "This was not trash. This was a grave. My people hid our memory here so no one would forget us." Evan placed his hand on her shoulder. "Now you found it," she nodded. "And they'll keep hunting us until they take it away." He looked around the glowing chamber one last time. "Then we move again. But this time we don't run forever. We find a place where they can't reach you." Lyra smiled faintly. "A place where treasure belongs." Together they left the ancient vault. the sphere glowing gently in her arms. Above them, the ruined city waited, unaware that under its broken streets, an alien queen's legacy had just awakened, and the hunters had seen something they would never forget. The morning light broke through the cracks of the ruined city as Evan and Lyra climbed out from the tunnels. Dust covered their clothes and exhaustion showed on their faces, but there was also a strange peace between them. The sphere still glowed softly in her hands, warm and alive. They found shelter in an abandoned watchtower overlooking the city. From there, Evan could see smoke rising in the distance. The hunters were still searching. He turned toward Lyra, who sat quietly on the cold floor holding the sphere close to her heart. "It's getting stronger," she said softly. "I can feel it inside my chest, like it's becoming part of me." Evan crouched beside her. "You've done something no one could. You woke up that ancient vault. Maybe your people left it for you." She smiled faintly. "Maybe they wanted me to remember." He looked at her eyes, and still pale and unfocused. "Do you want to see again?" he asked. She tilted her head. "I think I already see more than most." But as she spoke, the sphere began to hum again. Its light pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. The hum grew louder until the air around them vibrated. "Lyra," Evan said quietly, "what's happening?" Her breathing quickened. The light spilled from her hands, wrapping around her body. "It's calling me," she whispered. "It's asking for something." Before Evan could move, the light expanded, filling the entire tower. He shielded his eyes. Lyra stood at the center, glowing like a star. Her hair lifted in the energy, her blind eyes wide open. She gasped in pain. "It burns, but it feels like truth." Evan reached out. "Lyra, stop. You'll hurt yourself." But the sphere floated from her hands and dissolved into pure light. It entered her chest, leaving a faint glow under her skin. The humming stopped. The air went still. Evan rushed to her side. "Lyra, are you all right?" She didn't answer. Her head hung low, her breathing shallow. Then slowly she lifted her face. Her eyes blinked once, twice, and for the first time she truly looked at him. Her lips parted in wonder. "Evan," she whispered, "I can see you." He froze, staring back at her. Her once clouded eyes were now clear and bright, shining with faint golden light. She reached out, touching his face carefully as tears filled her eyes. "You were the voice that guided me through the dark," she said. "Now I see what kindness looks like." Evan smiled softly, though his heart felt heavy with emotion. "You did it, Lyra, you're whole again." But the peace didn't last. A sudden noise broke the silence, the sound of engines and shouting. Evan ran to the broken window and saw armed vehicles moving through the streets. The hunters had found them again. "They're coming," he said. "We have to move." Lyra stood, still trembling from what had happened, but now her movements were firm. She looked at the city for the first time. "It's so broken," she said quietly. "So much pain." Evan grabbed his bag. "We'll fix it later. Right now we survive." The tower shook as the hunters surrounded it. Voices shouted orders below. Lyra closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "No more running," she said. "They came for the treasure. Let them see what it really is." Before Evan could answer, she walked to the center of the room. The faint glow under her skin grew brighter until her whole body shined with golden light. The floor trembled. The hunters broke through the door, aiming their weapons. "Don't move!" one shouted. Evan stepped forward to shield her, but she placed her hand on his arm. "It's all right," she said. "You showed me the way. Now I'll show them the light." The hunters fired, but the bullets never reached her. They dissolved in midair as if swallowed by invisible waves. Lyra raised her hand slowly, and a calm wave of light spread across the room. The walls glowed. The air became warm. The hunters dropped their weapons, staring in disbelief. One of them fell to his knees. Evan watched as the light wrapped around her like wings. Her eyes were calm, her voice gentle. "You wanted power," she said softly, "but you forgot what power was made for." The light reached the ceiling, blasting through it. From outside, the ruined tower looked like it was touched by dawn. When the glow faded, the hunters were gone, running in fear. The city below fell silent again. Lyra stood there, breathing slowly. The glow around her dimmed until only her eyes shimmered faintly. She turned to Evan, a soft smile on her lips. "The gift wasn't sight," she said. "It was understanding." He stepped closer, still amazed. "You're not the same girl I met in that alley." She shook her head. "No, you helped me become who I was meant to be." As the sunlight filled the broken tower, they stood side by side. The girl who once saw only darkness now looked upon a world that needed healing, and the human who once felt guilt now carried hope. The light had given her sight, but the human heart had given her purpose. The days after the light spread through the city were quiet. The hunters had vanished. The people who once hid behind broken walls now came out, whispering stories of a golden light that fell from the sky. They said it healed the sick, stopped fires, and made the air warm again. None knew where it came from, but Evan did. It came from Lyra. She no longer walked like the fragile, blind girl he first met. Her eyes, now bright and alive, looked upon the ruins with peace instead of fear. She could see everything. The cracks in the walls, the burned buildings, the broken machines. Yet she didn't see ugliness. She saw possibilities. Evan worked beside her, rebuilding what little they could. He gathered wood and metal, repaired roofs, and fixed old lights. Lyra helped where her hands could, but her real gift was hope. Wherever she walked, the ground grew brighter. Plants began to rise from the dirt, and the people started believing again. Every evening, they sat together on the edge of the rebuilt tower, watching the fading sun paint the city in gold. Lyra often stayed silent, listening to the soft hum that still lived inside her chest, the echo of the sphere that had become part of her. One evening, Evan asked, "Do you ever miss it? The way it was before? When it still spoke to you?" She smiled gently. "It still speaks. Not with words, but with light. Every time someone chooses kindness, I hear it." He looked at her, unsure if she was speaking about magic or faith. Maybe it was both. As the wind brushed through her hair, she said softly, "I used to think I was nothing, just a blind girl digging through garbage. But you showed me something greater. You saw treasure in what everyone else called trash." Evan smiled faintly. "I just saw someone trying to survive." She shook her head. "No, you saw me before I saw myself. That changed everything." The city below was slowly coming back to life. Humans and aliens who once avoided each other now worked side by side, patching walls, lighting fires, sharing food. The hatred that had burned for years was fading like smoke in the wind. But peace never stayed easy. One morning, a messenger from the outer colonies arrived. He carried news that made the people nervous. Warlords from other lands were coming. They had heard about the alien Queen of Light and wanted her power. Evan's face darkened when he heard it. "They'll come for you again," he said. Lyra looked toward the horizon where dark clouds gathered. "Then they'll see what true treasure means." That night, before the storm reached the city, she stood at the center of the square. People gathered around her, frightened but curious. The glow inside her chest began to shine through her skin. She raised her hand slowly. "When I was blind," she said, her voice calm and clear, "I searched for food among trash, but I learned something greater. What we throw away often holds the power to save us. You all think this world is broken, but it's only waiting to be seen with new eyes." Her words carried through the wind. The light spread again, reaching every corner of the ruined streets. The people watched as the sky cleared, revealing bright stars for the first time in years. Evan stood behind her, watching her with pride. He didn't move closer. He knew this was her moment. She was no longer the girl he had rescued. She was something more. The voice of a forgotten people, the light of a dying world reborn. When the glow faded, she turned back to him. Her eyes glistened with tears, but her smile was warm. "It's done," she said softly. "They'll remember now." Evan walked toward her, his voice quiet. "And what about you? What will you do now that the world knows who you are?" She looked up at the sky. "I'll stay," she said, "because this world still needs hands that build, not destroy. And because you're here," he laughed softly. "You could be a queen, Lyra." She stepped closer and touched his hand. "I'd rather be a friend." The city lights flickered back to life. The stars reflected in her eyes as they stood together, surrounded by the soft glow of a world beginning again. Evan looked at her one last time and said, "You were never the treasure, Lyra. You were the one who showed everyone how to find it." She smiled, holding his hand as the wind carried the scent of new life through the broken streets. Above them, where once there had been only smoke and darkness, the sky now shimmered with gentle light, the promise of a new beginning born from a blind girl who learned to see not with her eyes, but with her heart.